Hello there, and welcome to today's episode of Legacy Leaders. So this is going to be an interview series where I basically have a quick 15-minute chat with some of the best leaders in the world who are leading, in incredible organizations and are just adding so much value and creating a legacy. So today we have the honor and the privilege of listening to Christopher Kunney, and I'm hoping I got that right, or close enough. Okay, right. Fantastic. So yes, I invited Christopher over to chat with you for a number of different reasons. He is such an incredible leader, not just in the work that he does, but also he is involved in so many other aspects in just creating that legacy and making sure that he is imparting his wisdom and his knowledge in so many different avenues. So I'm super excited to talk with him today. But before we jump into the actual interview part of the conversation, I would love to give Christopher an opportunity to introduce himself and tell you all a little bit more about what he has going on. So I'll hand it over to you, Christopher. Thank you.
No, well, thank you so much. It's a pleasure and an honor to be on your show. I appreciate you inviting me, and I'm flattered that I would be considered a person you would want to have some conversation with and some insights around. So thank you so much. I am Christopher Kunney. I currently serve as Senior Vice President for Digital Acceleration for Divurgent. Divurgent is a innovative technology solutions and resource consulting firm. We provide a whole host of services to help with the transformation of technology and acceleration of technology within our customers, both providers, payers, and providers who act as payers as well too. And so I'll spend a little time talking about that through our conversation. But more importantly, just also sharing with you my journey to Divurgent, which I'm a recent employee of as well. My background has always been centered to some degree around technology and service. And I as a kid, I've gained some of that foundation from my grandparents, my parents, who were both, my grandmother was a teacher and a principal. My father was a teacher, an educator, and business leader. My sister was a teacher, and I've been surrounded around educators all my life. And so this idea of education and knowledge and service has always been a part of my family's DNA. I have worked for a wide variety of organizations throughout my career, both on the technology side, the academic side, and also on the provider or healthcare side. My background is a computer science degree, master's in management of technology, and I've had the opportunity to work with companies like Hewlett Packard, Verso Technologies. I ran my own consulting practice for a number of years. And then over the past probably almost 2 decades now, I've had the opportunity to be a servant leader within the healthcare industry, having served as a CIO for a large healthcare system here in Atlanta, Georgia, and a virtual and an interim CIO for a wide variety of health systems, both behavioral health, ambulatory, acute care throughout the country. I've also taken on some of the academic DNA of my family. I've actually served as a adjunct professor and still serve as an adjunct professor for a number of different universities. And I currently serve as the chair for Morehouse School of Medicine's master's degree program in healthcare informatics, actually the industry chair for that. And I serve as one of the adjuncts for their pipeline program. And I've also had the opportunity to serve as an adjunct for Arizona State University through Dignity Health Global Education, and then for other universities such as Emory and DeVry University, et cetera. I've been an advisor to a wide variety of technology companies, both Fortune 500 companies, as well as startups, academic institutions, government agencies, and philanthropic organizations. And some of my most proudest work is some of my volunteer work that I do, having served as and still serve on the board for Georgia HIMSS, also serve on the HIMSS Global Health Equity Task Force. I'm a board member for an organization called Caring Meds, and we do medical missions to underserved communities, such as communities in West Africa. And I've been a board chair for a network of charter schools as well, too. So my life has always been surrounded around technology, education, and service. And it's been such a pleasure to be a person who's, I think there's a saying that says too much is given, much is required. And I take that very personally, and I get joy and pleasure out of helping serve others and helping others grow.
That is incredible. Wow. You've given me so much, and I'm so curious about so many different areas because you clearly have such a passion for serving in so many different areas, but it also seems like that passion just really comes through in a lot of what you do. So I'm just curious as far as what made you pick this particular field? And so we have a little bit of a similar background in that my undergrad degree was in technology as well, and software engineering, and then I moved into technology leadership, and my master's is in technology leadership. And so I'm just curious from your perspective, what got you down this path? Because obviously service is very important to you as well, but there's so many different areas that you could go, to have that level of impact. So I'm just curious about why technology, and then why the healthcare space in particular.
Absolutely. Well, I have to owe it to my parents and my upbringing. Again, my father was an educator, and my grandmother was an educator, and my mom was a entrepreneur as well too. And throughout my upbringing, my parents not only gave me basketballs and footballs and tennis rackets and things like that, but I got model rockets and chemistry sets and microscopes and encyclopedias. And so I've always been an individual who had a fascination with science and technology. If I got a toy, I would typically tear the toy apart and take the engine out of it and try to make something else out of it. So I always had this fascination with science and technology as a part of who I was. And music as well too. I didn't mention I paint, I draw, I play saxophone as well. So I'm a little bit right brain and left brain to some extent. I enjoy the creative process of anything, whether it's technical or just music or creative mindset. And so I think it started with them planting that seed of education being something you can enjoy and have a passion for. And then technology has always been something that I've always enjoyed as a young kid. I'm a baby boomer, and I was probably the first baby boomer on my block to actually get an Atari video game. And my brother and I used to have model rockets. And so we were always the first kids on the block to get the technology cool stuff. And I found that technology was cool. It's okay to be being a nerd is actually being cool. Yeah. And also I was an athlete too, and I played football and ran track and things of that nature. But I always leaned towards technology, and education is something that was a real passion for me. So I have to attribute my parents to inspiring that in me.
I love that. And that's such a testament, right, to the role that parents play in nurturing that in their kids. So I love that at a very young age, you're already drawn into this area, and it just continued to build after that. That is incredible. So I would love to talk a little bit more about what you talked about earlier when it comes to being service-based and having this like servant leadership, approach. So tell me a little bit more about that. When you think about servant leadership, what does that mean to you, and how were you able to incorporate that into your leadership style?
No, absolutely. Again, I probably will sound a little bit like a broken record as well too, but I go back to my parents once again. My father was again an educator. He was an entrepreneur, and he was a servant leader within our community. He was an advisor. I lived in a small town in the South, and it was an agrarian society. So everyone was farmers or folks related to the farming industry. And my father was a vocational agriculture teacher. But he was also an advisor to many of the farmers in that community as well too. And so I've watched him and the servant-minded leadership he had for the students that he was cultivating and educating on how to be better, farmers, as well as serving in our church and in our community as a civic leader as well too. And so I think it was birthed from that initially. And then what I have found also, I was really blessed in my own career to have really good mentors as I was going through my professional growth as well. Strong managers and advisors who helped guide me and tapped into that potential that I had. I believe it or not, I'm an introvert by nature as well too. And so, but there were those leaders who saw something beyond that introvertedness about me that thought I could play a different role in the organization, a more prominent role, a more leadership role, and they helped to nurture and cultivate that in me. And I found that as something I wanted to mimic as I was moved and put into positions of responsibility, and then having people report to me. And
Mhm.
I found, quite honestly, pleasure and satisfaction in watching people grow and develop. And again, I think that comes from my educational DNA that
Mhm.
my parents and grandparents instilled into me. It was always a joy to watch someone who had this potential, realize that potential, grow and move beyond, what they thought were boundaries in their lives to, take on greater challenges and become leaders themselves. And it was always a great pleasure for me to see them grow and move on beyond the roles that they were in, even within my own organization, to go do things greater and maybe even succeed and what I was doing at that time as well too. It
Yeah.
was really a blessing and a pleasure to see that happen.
That's amazing. And that's so insightful. There's a couple of things that you said that I definitely want to touch on. One is that you talked about how you saw this modeled for you, right, in your parents and your upbringing. And then the other thing you mentioned is that people who took specific interest in you and your own career and invested in you, like your mentors and things like that, and that
Absolutely.
inspired you to then go, and mentor others. And also that's very rewarding, right? When we are others focused, when we focus more on the development and growth of other people, that really helps us too. And I always tell my clients this as well. I oftentimes will learn so much more from coaching them than they learn from me being their coach. But yeah, it's an incredible experience to be able, and an honor, right, to be able to do that. So I love that.
That's right. Absolutely. I always found pleasure and joy and growth in any of those encounters that I experience, and being a mentor, coach, manager, leader within an organization as well too. So it's very much a symbiotic type of relationship that you develop when you take on that mindset. I think the other thing too that was really interesting as I started moving into senior level positions in an organization, how important it was to have those mentors, those advisors, those advocates for you as you were trying to grow in your career as well too, because you can be the smartest person, you can have 100 degrees behind you, you can be working 60, 70 hours a week, but if you don't have people who are advocating for you in the organization, accelerating your professional career, moving through your professional career in a very, positive way, can still be a challenge for many people. And I think that's really frustrating for a lot of folks who don't have mentors, coaches, and advocates for themselves as they go through their professional careers, because they see their colleagues, move past them and grow and move on to other things, and they ask themselves, why is that not me? I'm working just as hard. I went out and got the degrees. I'm putting in the effort, but yet I still continue to not realize my potential.
Right.
And a lot of it depends on having those relationships, cultivating those relationships, and then finding those sponsors and mentors who will help you grow and move through your career.
That is so true. And I see this more and more now that people are coming to the realization of just how important it is. It's not just performance-based, but there's so many other variables. Like there's so many other things that go into helping them to be successful and get to where they want to go.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and I love that you are, like so invested in this, right? Not just for your own development, but then also for the development of others. So what I would love to ask you next is about like the top 3 things that you feel have really been instrumental in you being successful, in your career.
A good question. I think first and foremost, understanding what your personal brand is and what that means at your job, in the profession that you're in the marketplace in general. And I learned that the importance of that as I was trying to vie for some executive level positions, and some of the challenges I initially had as a result of that, because people within the organization did not understand what my personal brand really was, and whether or not I could operate as an executive. Was I seen as an executive? Was I participating in activities that executives were engaged in? Did I understand what the challenges and issues were within our organization from an executive perspective? So I think it's really important for individuals to understand what their personal brand is. What does your social media profile look like today? If you go out to mine, I'm very purposeful about what that brand is and what I wanted to convey. And I use that and the social media platforms to convey a perspective of a thought leader, someone who's knowledgeable about the industry, and someone who's seen as a leader and a servant-minded leader, more importantly. And so understanding that personal brand, I think, is really, really important. The second thing I think for me is understanding that failure is a part of the process. of growth as well too. I've always asked myself the question, and asked myself for the, throughout my career, what's the worst that can happen, and can I survive it, and can I learn from it as well too. And so as I step into roles and opportunities that may stretch me from my comfort zone, there will be occasions where you will be successful at that, probably hopefully more so than not, but there will be occasions where you won't be successful at that. And can you grow from those times where you did fall short and fail forward through that process? I think it's been very instrumental for me as well. And then I think finally, don't take yourself too seriously as well. Now life is a journey, not a destination. When I started out as a person who received their bachelor's degree in computer science and mathematics, and I thought I wanted to be a programmer. And then I knew when I first got my first true programming job back in the day, we called them programmers, not developers. That tells you how old I am.
Well, I remember those days. That's where I started.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
I realized probably 6 months into that I don't want to do this for the rest of my life, the rest of my career. Yeah. And I want to pivot to, I like technology, I want to be around it, but this part of the journey is not where I want to stay. Right. And so understanding that, that's not a death sentence, that you want to move in a different direction, but it is a part of the journey of learning, growing, and evolving into the person that you ultimately will be at the end of your days. And so today, what I'm doing, at Divurgent is exciting, and I'm looking forward to continue to make a difference there. But I don't know what the next 10 years will hold, and I'm hoping that I will continue to want to grow and be and evolve and be a better person than I am today. So, not taking myself too seriously, but also understanding that life's a journey and not a destination.
Absolutely. And being willing to embrace that journey, right? Regardless of where it goes. So I love those three things. So personal brand, and then you talked about failing forward and recognizing that's part of the process. And then of course, not taking yourself too seriously. Love it. Absolutely. So as we wrap up here, one other question I have for you is, sure. And I'm going to put you on the spot a little bit because I know there's so much you could share. But I am curious if there's one thing that you would like to share with our audience of corporate leaders here that you think might be helpful. Maybe it's unconventional wisdom that you learned along the way, right? Because there's so much we can learn from books and different materials, but sometimes there's those little nuggets that we get that can be a little bit unconventional. So I would love to hear from you. If there's one thing that you could share with our audience, what would that be?
Unconventional. I don't know if it's so much unconventional as it is, and maybe even cliche today, but I think it's still very relevant. Truly embracing diversity in your life, diversity of thought, diversity of people, diversity of backgrounds, perspectives. I think being a critical thinker around that and not getting caught up in one way of looking at the world, but looking at it through the lenses of a wide variety of people and experiences, I think makes us better and makes us appreciate, life in a much more full and robust way. It's kind of like making a stew. If the stew only had pepper in it, then it's gonna taste one way. But if it has salt, pepper, paprika, a whole bunch of other spices, it gives it so much more flavor, and it hopefully tastes better, at the end of its, at the end of creating it as well too. And so I like to think of life from that perspective. I try to embrace the diversity of people and thought and relationships that I develop, and I think that just makes us better human beings.
Oh, I could not agree with you more, and so well said. I love that because there is so much to diversity, and I love how you shared with us the different aspects of that and how that kind of can come together and be so beneficial. So thank you so much, Christopher. I really appreciate your time. But there's two quick things that I want to share with the audience, if you wouldn't mind. One thing you touched on a little bit earlier is the importance of personal brand. And actually, I wanted to share with our audience that that's one of the reasons that attracted me to you is your online profile. That's how we connected. And so I just wanted to throw that out there, if that's okay with you, Christopher, to let our audience know that if you want to see a really, really strong, personal and professional brand demonstrated online, like on a LinkedIn profile, definitely check out Christopher's profile because it's really amazing how he's been able to articulate what he stands for, the value that he brings, his experience, all of it really comes together really well. So that's one thing. And then the second thing I wanted to share is your podcast. So I know you have a podcast
Yes.
as well. So I definitely wanted to give our listeners an opportunity to tune into that and to learn even more from you. So if you wouldn't mind sharing a little bit more about how they can get in touch with you that way, that would be amazing.
Absolutely. Well, first of all, thank you so much for the feedback on my my LinkedIn profile. I'm always trying to improve it. So any individual, and I always accept every LinkedIn request as well too. So you never know who knows who, and again, that diversity and experience is really important as well too. So please reach out and link in with me. I'd love to collaborate wherever I can. And yes, I do have a podcast, and real quickly, because I'm sure we're running up on time, it's called Straight Out of Health IT, Straight Out of OUTTA, Health IT. And it really is and it's me being straight out of healthcare IT, talking to a wide variety of folks within the healthcare technology ecosystem. So it's not purely just about IT, it's not purely just about healthcare, but it is about that entire health and healthcare journey and the ecosystem associated with that. And so I've interviewed a wide variety of leaders and individuals who are impacting what's happening in the healthcare. And I'm always looking for others who are interested in sharing their story and their message to a broader audience as well too. So thank you for allowing me to share that as well.
Oh, absolutely. And I'll go ahead and post the links below as well to both your LinkedIn profile and to the podcast. So thanks
Thank you.
again, Christopher. It's been such a pleasure. I've learned so much from you. I've been taking notes as we went along. So thank you for sharing. And I look forward to staying in touch and hopefully having you back on, maybe for round two.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And I have to have you on my podcast as well. Thank you for
I'd
the
love that.
opportunity. And I look
No
forward
problem
to
at all.
continued collaboration as well. Take care. God
Sounds
bless.
good. Thank you. You too. Bye.